Welcome to our Energy Connect studio at Gastech 2022. I'm delighted to have sitting next to me Jill Ivanko, CEO of Chart Industries. Thank you so much for taking time out on this busy day two of Gastech to come and speak to me.
It's great to be here. Great to be here live too.
Yes. How is Chart Industries tailoring its offering to suit a shifting demand and a policy landscape that we're facing?
Yeah, definitely. So Chart Industries, by way of background, we're an engineering, design, manufacturing company for cryogenic-related processes and equipment. So what that allows us to do is kind of play across the molecule value chain, meaning that we don't have to necessarily pick one winner and bet that on the outcome. So what we're seeing is the ability to play across a variety of different energy transition applications, ranging from LNG to hydrogen to carbon capture, and the list goes on. And in that mode, what we've seen over the course of the last 6 months in particular is what I would say resurrection of LNG in particular. So that's become returned to being the largest percent of our business as a whole.
Okay.
And we haven't seen any softening for what I would call renewables. So we're continuing to see a forward thought process toward more sustainable solutions, but with what I'd say is a practical or pragmatic approach to this energy transition.
Yeah, I mean, the thirst for LNG has certainly returned.
Yes.
And where do you see the greatest opportunities? I mean, is it from Europe or is it just still Asia?
Everywhere. So LNG in particular, obviously the hot topic being energy security, resilience, independence, access, the list of descriptors goes on. And that's discussion is centered around EU, yet we're seeing global demand. And that's both from a supply perspective and a demand perspective. And it's also across the range of LNG solutions. So we have big LNG, those are your export terminals, in particular on the US Gulf Coast, that we provide process and equipment to. Small scale and floating has definitely, I would say the demand has increased more than we've ever seen for that particular bucket. LNG infrastructure, so over the road trucks and fueling stations and ISO containers, obviously you need that to kind of take the import, export and link those two. And then the most recent demand profile increase has been LNG retrofits, refurbishments, taking existing and getting it going as quickly as possible.
And how can you see sort of, obviously Europe and you say best cooperate? And I think this goes down to a lot of LNG contracts. So looking in the short term, then obviously Asia traditionally the long term, but they're a middle way or what, that can really make it stable.
Absolutely, and I think that you've seen that at least in theoretical, where you've got this US is going to help Europe, and a lot of that then goes to speed to construction of these facilities. How quickly can you get to first gas in order to accomplish that gap of missing however many MTPA you want to define as the gap. And we see that continuing at an increasing demand level, so we don't see this as what you would have previously looked at as a typical LNG cycle, kind of that peaky trophy approach, and rather kind of staying like this or maybe like that. And that's something that's really interesting in terms of a change in the macro environment.
Absolutely. And early on we touched on energy transition, but what are you doing in that space?
So we have been doing energy transition related equipment for over 57 years.
Okay. So
nobody cared about it until a couple of years ago. So on the hydrogen side of things, which is probably, I would say, second in our portfolio in terms of current demand levels, we do process technologies for liquefaction. So we liquefy the hydrogen molecule, storage and transport, tanks, trailers, connecting tube and pipe, and then end use. So we provide very similar end use equipment that we do for LNG to hydrogen. Different metallurgy, different temperature, but very similar in terms of visual construct. We also play in water treatment, so probably a less appreciated portion of our business. We do water treatment for all 300 plus contaminants, and those happen to conjoin with cryogenic storage tanks, which is where the molecule is stored. And then probably the only other one I'd touch on is cryogenic carbon capture. So carbon capture certainly being discussed as a key part of the next decade toward the 2030 carbon emission reduction goals. We have technology to capture CO2, and we also have the equipment for processing, whether that's air-cooled heat exchangers or storage tanks, just to name a few.
And with the future venture coming up, how important is industry collaboration? Because you just said you have some of the technologies, and again, things like Gastech and these kind of shows talking and speaking to different industry players must be important.
It is top tier of importance. So both from an inorganic, organic partnership perspective, but Gastech is certainly the show of the year for us to connect with all suppliers and customers, and that's something that is really valuable to be able to do in a short period of time in one place, especially when you're seeing the speed of these changes unfold.
Yeah. And this is the last question. We're on day 2, but how's it gone so far? Any highlights?
Oh, it's been going great. So again, touching on the numerous different constituents that we've been able to touch base with, the various panel discussions have been interesting and enlightening, and I think the combination of the public and private sector participants is really an important part of where we sit today with all of the geopolitical conversations that everyone's well aware of.
Great, Jill. Well, thank you so much for popping down the Energy Connect studio, and I hope you have a good rest of the show, and thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Super.